Diddy's closing arguments is taking place right now as we speak, and we might have a verdict for this trial by Monday, but it's not looking good for Diddy to say the least. It's usually a terrible sign when curative instructions are needed for your closing statement. Curative instructions is essentially a judge instructing the jury that something false was said or mistakes or mishaps was made and they should ignore it, or he corrected the instructions given to them. In this case, the prosecutors asked the judge to instruct the jury to correct some things that Diddy attorney said during his closing statement. He said a couple of things that are factually incorrect. In an attempt to downplay Diddy charges, he would ask the jury to consider why they believe the prosecutors is charging Diddy with a RICO and all these felonies when the incident that sparked the investigation was a misdemeanor, which is Diddy being caught on video, brutalizing Cassie at the Intercontinental. So Diddy attorney told the jury that the Intercontinental was a misdemeanor. The judge corrected that, said, no, that's not true. They also corrected the fact that Diddy attorney told the jury that Diddy was being charged with arson, that the prosecutors couldn't prove. That wasn't true. The arson charges got dropped. Diddy attorneys now is telling the judge, hold on, judge, this is not fair. They did something wrong yesterday. We didn't object to what they did wrong. So apparently yesterday, one of the prosecutors told the jury that there might have been guns at the freak-offs, and there was no evidence of that. They're like, Your Honor, we didn't object to that. Now they are trying to get you to instruct the jury that our attorney did something improper. That's gonna play bad with the jury. This is not fair. The judge is saying, listen, I have to do it because what you did was improper. But the big question is, how is the closing statements going? And is Diddy gonna be found not guilty or guilty? Is Diddy gonna spend the rest of his life in prison, or is Diddy gonna be home by next week? Now, before we can even get to the closing statements today, let's just back up a little bit, because a couple of days ago, the prosecutors actually released a memo where they actually dropped a couple of charges from Diddy's case. They announced they no longer want to pursue charges on attempted kidnapping, aiding and abetting trafficking, attempted arson. Now, they also did something pretty smart to me. The government has also attempted to simplify the language within the indictment relating to count one. Because the government understands, bro, like this RICO is pretty complicated, especially when they're essentially amplifying these cases, bro. Because you could have simply charged Diddy with possibly a couple misdemeanors, maybe a felony here or there, and kept it pushing. But to bring it in as a RICO, they are really overreaching. And it's super complicated to understand if you're not like a legal jargon expert. So they have tried to simplify it so the jury can have clear instructions on exactly what they're charging Diddy with and what they're accusing Diddy of doing. What does this mean for Diddy? Let's go over to Bradford Cohen, probably one of the most famous celebrity attorneys. He done spanked the feds, he done spanked the state a couple of times. So let Bradford Cohen explain exactly what this means for Diddy, and we'll be back.
All right, let's talk Diddy. Very, very interesting stuff going on, in my opinion, on this case. The government has dropped several of the allegations for the RICO count and things of that nature. The arson, which they had zero proof of. I can't even believe they allowed testimony on the arson. Absolutely no proof of the arson and the 911 that was burnt down to the ground or whatever was happened to that car. And the kidnapping, again, the lack of evidence, the lack of proof, the lack of organization that they actually put these things into an indictment, use that indictment to keep him and hold him, make these allegations so that he shouldn't have bond, make all these allegations so he shouldn't have bond. This should have been a case where he should have been granted bond. He was ready to self-surrender. It was kind of a joke on that side of it. And we're going to see how this all shakes out, see what the jury does. They dismissed one of the jurors because they thought that he wasn't being truthful for where he lived. I thought that was an overkill. I thought they should have kept him on the jury, especially because he was African American, and I think that's what the prosecution wanted to do, is get rid of him. But we're going to see where this all shakes out. I don't think this is a clean sweep. I think the RICO case is a stretch. The sex trafficking, I think they could walk him on if they really thought about it. I think he's a John that has a violence problem. I think he needs anger management. He's not a good guy. And this is going to be the closing. He's not a good guy, but is it the things that he was doing criminal, or were these things that individuals wanted to do on their own volition, get paid $10,000 to show up and have sex with Cassie, where she was arranging most of the engagements, even without Diddy there. I actually was able to speak with one of the I guess, prostitutes in this case, where he called my office to discuss some things. He's got a new book coming out, and I'll follow up with what he had to say, everything that's not attorney-client privilege.
Even the most optimistic Diddy defender ain't so delusional to think that Diddy about to beat this case 100%. That Diddy about to sweep the feds. Diddy about to be found not guilty on every count and every charge is not happening, bro. Get that thought process out your mind. If you're Diddy, you got to sit down and realize, yo, I'm going to be found guilty on something. I just don't want that RICO. I just don't want that egg trafficking. Yo, you could live with the transportation for prostitution. You could live with that. That's like 5 years, I think, 5 to 10. Diddy is facing a life sentence right now. He'll be happy with 5 to 10. I don't think Diddy is getting anything less than 10 years. That's from my perspective. And the scariest part about this too is the prosecutors understand this. See, the prosecutors ain't going into this like all or nothing. No, the prosecutors are actually instructing the jury during their closing statement. You don't have to think that we are honest people. You don't have to think that we told 100% of the truth. If you believe that just one of the freak-offs was not consensual, the victims were coerced into it, then you must find him guilty. But let's take a look at the closing statement so you could really see, man, how they're trying to nail Diddy to the coffin on anything.
Money, power, influence, violence, and fear. To the feds, that is a recipe for racketeering. And in a federal courtroom today in Manhattan, the prosecution team in the Sean Diddy Combs trial made it crystal clear to the jury that it does not matter if you're not a mob family like the Gaudis. It doesn't matter if, say, you're a rap music mogul like Diddy. The law is the law, and Diddy broke it over and over again, they said. In her 4-hour closing argument today, Assistant U.S. Attorney Christy Slavic made it real easy for this jury. She told them they don't even have to believe everything that the prosecutors have laid out over these last 7 weeks. She said it only takes one single freak-off that was the product of force or fraud or coercion. And that, she said, equals sex trafficking, period.
Something needs to be done here, man, about the feds, the state, the prosecutors weaponizing the racketeering charges. They've done it to a lot of people. The RICO charge was not invented for people like Diddy. It was invented for mob bosses. It was invented for an organized crime ring, gangs, the mafia, not for people like Diddy. It's now being used when they can nail you to the cross on something. Even in this arson, they have no proof whatsoever that Diddy is involved in Kid Cudi's car being burnt up. Even Kid Cudi testified when he confronted Diddy about it, Diddy said he don't know what he's talking about. There's no fingerprints, no evidence, no nothing, no text exchange, nothing at all. However, they are bringing a RICO Act because they can say, yo, we believe that he paid somebody to do it. There's no evidence tracing back to who he paid, but he paid them. And here's why. List the series of events that took place, creating up a narrative and a story. When otherwise, you're going to have to prove who this man paid, when he paid them, how he paid them with. With a RICO, you don't. You just got to prove that the person who did this could have been acting on behalf of Diddy. Prosecutors understand that as a man, if you're a juror on this Diddy trial and you're over 50 years old, you're seasoned, you understand that's a slippery slope and that's not right. Which is why the prosecutors are going out of the way to say, hey, man, even if you think, man, the racketeering is BS, don't forget about these other charges, though.
The mere act of supplying people in those freak-offs with drugs, that includes enough crimes right there to equal racketeering, she said. Prosecutor insisted that Diddy used his Bad Boy Entertainment employees to keep the cocaine, the ketamine, the ecstasy, and the other drugs flowing, and the freak-off participants awake and compliant. But she said that he also allegedly used those same assistants and his security staff for crimes that an old-school mob boss might recognize. Crimes like kidnapping. Here are the cases that the prosecutor actually laid out. She said that Cassie Ventura was forced to stay in a hotel for a full week in 2009 until her bruises were no longer visible after being beaten by Diddy. And that an ex-Diddy employee named Capricorn Clark was kidnapped twice. Once by a Diddy stooge named Uncle Polly, they said, who threatened to dump her body in the East River. And another time by Diddy himself, they said, while on a mission to kill the rapper Kid Cudi, who was dating Cassie at the time. As for another racketeering crime, arson. The prosecutor said Diddy's alleged firebombing of Kid Cudi's Porsche certainly does count, as does bribery. When the prosecutor reminded the jury of the $100,000 that Diddy allegedly paid to keep that hotel surveillance video of Cassie being beaten senseless under wraps. As far as the sex trafficking charges go, the government told the jury that just because Cassie and Jane may have been willing in some of the freak-offs does not mean they consented to all of them.
How does one figure out or determine which one of the freak-offs they didn't consent to? Is it their word versus his? Because the male escorts came and they said when they were engaging with Cassie, they didn't see any signs of that she didn't want to do this. She was engaged, she was aggressive, she was actually enjoying herself according to them. All the messages they show, Cassie was somewhat engaging with this. Cassie was paying them. Cassie was asking, yo, when we gonna do it the next time? Now, they're claiming they were only appearing to be, I guess, happy to do these freak-offs because they wanted to give Diddy, which was their boyfriend at the time, a good experience. But when you have nothing but messages of Cassie enjoying this, never expressing that she feel forced to do this, the escorts are saying that she was having a good time. Well, at what point do we say Cassie was coerced into this? Cassie was forced into this? Where? Their logic and what they're claiming is proof that Cassie, on at least one occasion, didn't want to do these freak-offs is the video where Diddy is beating up Cassie at the Intercontinental Hotel. They're claiming that, hey, bruh, at least we know that he put his hands on her. And do you think that she will consent 100% of the time to a man who put his hands on her? Again, Diddy is a garbage human being. Diddy is terrible. Diddy is horrible. I wouldn't want to go to dinner or lunch with Diddy. I wouldn't want to grab coffee with Diddy. Diddy wouldn't be in my friend group at all. But to me, at this point, is he said, she said, bruh. And I don't feel like that should be enough to send a man to jail for the rest of his life.
And they said it only takes one. If they didn't consent to one, then it's sex trafficking, then it's forced labor. Diddy refused to take no for an answer, the prosecutor said, and rarely in his adult life did he have to. But now, she said, it is time to hold him accountable. And believe me when I tell you, I have literally just skimmed the surface of a speech that went on almost 5 hours and tease up the defense for an uphill climb in their closing arguments tomorrow. You know, for everybody out there who's just been dabbling or watching a headline here and there or some social media on it, a lot of people thought, nah, no way, this isn't sex trafficking, this isn't racketeering. Did it feel a little different now?
Yeah, I mean, today I felt like, before today, everyone was like, Diddy's going free. Like, he's going to have a freak off next week. People literally thought Diddy's going free. And then today, everyone was kind of looking around. Once they had that PowerPoint up on the screen, I feel like it really made it easy for people to finally put the pieces together and understand. It's almost like the prosecutors realized how confusing this RICO was for the general public. And they dumbed it down as much as they could for the jury, as if they were giving like a college presentation. And I
wouldn't put no stock into her mind being changed, because that's how court works, bro. It's like a racquetball session, man. When I was at the Tory Lanez trial, day one, it was me and lawyers for workers. We sat next to each other. After like the opening statement, I said, man, bro, Tory is guilty, man. And then the defense came, and I said, man, bro, Tory not guilty, bro. Man, cut it out, man. It's always a back and forth in court. But what I do believe is probably like the greatest threat to Diddy is the simplification of things. See, Brian Steele, one of Diddy attorneys, we know who Brian Steele is. Brian Steele is a master of deception. If you don't know what you're doing, he's going to spot it out, bro. He's going to spot out the blood and he's going to chase it. Just like with Brian Steele and the Young Thug RICO. The state didn't really understand what they were. Bro, Cobb County ain't understand what they were doing at all. They didn't understand a goddamn thing about how to formulate a RICO, and they were in over their heads. And Brian Steele took advantage of that. The feds ain't in over their heads, bro. Yo, the feds did a brilliant job at making sure a third grader could understand why they were charging Diddy with a RICO and exactly what Diddy did to earn these RICO charges. And if they made it so simple that a third grader could understand, now the defense can't lie on, hey, bro, the jurors won't understand this RICO. They won't understand. They will think that it's an overreach. And no, now the defense have to come and really poke holes in this. And as you've seen from the beginning of this video, it's not a good sign when they're already instructing the juror to ignore things you've said in your closing statement if you're Diddy's attorney.
Like up until today, people didn't realize how simple it was to prove a RICO. And now everyone's like, wait, is he going to jail for life? Now, maybe not. I think they're going to have a hard time proving the criminal enterprise, but all of the predicate acts, they almost seem like they could hit every one today. I don't know if that's what you felt.
I did, but I have felt that way since the beginning. Like literally, I've been watching and ticking boxes every single day saying, oh, they got that one. Oh, they got that one too. Damn, they got that one. So I've been like keeping a scorecard for 7 weeks, and I've just sort of been flummoxed by all these people out there saying this isn't trafficking and this isn't racketeering. I've seen the Southern District of New York do a sex trafficking and RICO charge with someone I know. So I really feel like they nailed this one. And I feel like you said they nailed it on each and every one.
I did. And I think the reason that the public has been kind of saying that, is it Diddy?
Yeah, that was my son. He does this all the time, Emily. That is my son, and he's almost 20, and he still doesn't know when I'm live on TV.
You got to put it on vibrate, Ashley. So, yeah,
I know, such a dumb move. Dumb move.
No, that was louder than the courtroom today. Like, I'm telling you, it was so quiet. It's usually very bizarre, and I feel like today, the people were like, wait, we're actually at a court trial. I feel like up until today, people thought this was just like one big happy hour. Like the creators are picking their favorite football team, making bets. And today we're like, wait, this is actually a real trial for Diddy.
Imagine fighting for your life in court and you got TikTokers outside doing dance trends, bruh. Now, Bradford Cohen actually did an analysis on this. He actually did a rebuttal. And I feel like you kind of have to hear both sides, right? Because when you just listen to these people, it sounds like it's a done deal case when it's not, bro. And let's be honest here, bro. These are women. They automatically, from the very beginning, from the very get-go, wanted Diddy out of here. It's believe all victims according to them, right? Believe everyone, right? If Cassie is lying or she's telling, it don't matter to them, bro. Cassie can do no wrong. Daphne and Joy can do no wrong. Daphne and Joy is the perfect victim. So you don't put too much stock into what they're saying. But Bradford Cohen is an actual lawyer. Now, he's very honest. He don't believe that Diddy is going to get found not guilty on everything. However, he do believe that some of the main charges is going to be really hard to prove. And he believes that Diddy attorneys has a chance to kind of rebuttal a lot of these things.
Let's talk Diddy closing arguments today. I watched and I've heard the government's closing argument. When I say I watched, I've read different things about what they said and how they said it. Interesting argument. I think that it was well written, well done. I think they're still going to have trouble. They tried as much as they could to distance themselves from certain aspects of the case, such as Cassie hiring the prostitutes, Cassie directing the prostitutes, Cassie paying the prostitutes, Cassie writing texts about that she can't wait to be with the prostitutes. So I think they've tried to put that in a box somehow so that the jury can convict on a RICO charge. I think it's still difficult. The RICO and the trafficking are still difficult charges to prove. I think that they can get them on the, crossing state lines with prostitution. And if that's really what they get at the end of the day, I think that they're in for some trouble in terms of how the public perception would be. Again, this case shaped up to be a lot different than it was originally, reporting on. I don't think that what they originally said really came to light in the trial itself, in the closing, and I think you saw that. We will see what the defense has to say in their closing, but I think it's going to be strong, passionate. I know that they will do a good job, and we'll find out what's going to happen. Listen, I can be wrong. Every pundit that speaks could be wrong. It could be a clean sweep of not guilties. I don't think that's going to happen, but I think that it's going to be very difficult to get a guilty on every charge. But it could. It could happen. Let's see what all shakes out today.
That's why the prosecutors were so adamant for the judge to instruct the jurors that Diddy was not charged with arson as a standalone crime, that is actually a part of the RICO, because they could think Diddy is not guilty of arson or other crimes, but if they think he's guilty of the bribery, if they think he's guilty of the forced labor, then they have to find him guilty of that racketeering, of that RICO. And I think they might have enough to get him on at least one or two of these to prove that RICO. But let me know in the comment section, what do you guys think about this? Do y'all believe that Diddy is coming home next week? Or do y'all think that, he's about to get sentenced to life, man? Let me know. Give me your up and under. Is he getting more than R. Kelly or less than R. Kelly? Let me know. And if you're still watching, click on this video here somewhere on my screen to find out about this huge Drake and T-Pain beef, or this huge drama they're currently going on that I think is actually pathetic drama. But I'm going to see you guys in this video somewhere on my screen. I'm out of here, folks. Peace.